My name is Lena Hart, 31, a freelance graphic designer in Dayton, Ohio. I used to be too trusting, the kind of woman who delivered extra drafts, just in case. Then my circle laughed at my cheap jobs. I learned what steel feels like when it forms in your spine. They mocked my rates, sent screenshots to group chats, and called me dollar store design. Months later, a helicopter banked over the river, wearing my logo. If you're here, like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Has anyone ever mocked your work until it suddenly mattered? Tell me in the comments where you're rewatching from, and if you've got a story like mine. I'll tell you how the laughing started, because humiliation rarely walks in wearing a name tag. It came disguised as help, as mentorship, as the easy advice from people who knew the industry. In Dayton, design work is practical. Storefronts, church bulletins, HVAC vans, the occasional fundraising gala with soggy napkins and a forgotten photo booth. Nobody brags about branding here. You earn it. I rented a narrow studio above a shuttered barber, the kind of place where the floorboards remember every tenant. Mornings smelled like old aftershave and fresh coffee from the bodega next door. I kept the walls white, the desk clean, and a corkboard crowded with logos no one saw, my personal training ground. Air ambulance symbols, flight wings, Medcross variations, rotor silhouettes sketched at 2 a.m. You'll understand later why those pins mattered. My cheap jobs were how I kept the lights on. Window decals for a bakery launching gluten-free Thursdays. A neighborhood plumber who paid me in 3 installments and 1 emergency sink repair. A high school coach who wanted t-shirts designed for a tournament that never happened because the gym flooded. I said yes too often, delivered more than they asked, and charged less than I should. People smiled and passed my name around like a coupon code. The first time I realized the smiles were knives was a Tuesday at Grounds and Grit, a coffee shop with cement floors and the best lemon loaf in the county. I was exporting a logo for a salon opening 2 blocks over. Silvery script, delicate scissors nested into the S, when Mason walked in with his camera bag slung like a trophy. Mason, videographer, part-time creative director at a boutique agency downtown. We'd collaborated twice. He insisted on calling me kid, though I was older by 11 months. Working hard or hardly working? He chuckled, tapping my screen like he owned it. Another $100 masterpiece? I charge more than that, I said, even though sometimes I didn't. He grinned, leaned closer. Hey, send me your salon comp. The client might upgrade if they see what real brand work looks like. He winked, strolled away, and, this is the part that burns, snapped a photo of my screen. Not the whole design, just enough to steal the idea and the moment. That afternoon, Claire, account manager at the same agency, queen of Sunday brunch inspiration posts, tagged me on a story. A slick reel teasing, elevated identity for a luxury salon. My scissor in the S concept pirouetted across their edit, polished just beyond recognition. Community collab, her caption read. No credit, no invoice. I DM'd her. She double-tapped the message and never replied. Here's the logic of small-town creative circles. Everyone knows everyone, and gossip travels faster than invoices. By Friday, I was a punchline. Friends, if that S what they were, told me to be grateful my ideas were in the mix. I sat at my narrow desk and tried to be grateful with a stomach full of ice. When money pinched, I took more cheap jobs. A printer who needed rush-hour menu boards for a food truck. A realtor desperate for a yard sign by sunset. A community center flyer with 4 logos, 3 dates, and 2 people CC'd on every email reply. If you know, you know. It's honest work. It's also where dignity goes to test its knees. That winter, the laughing got loud. Not to my face. Never straight on. Always at oblique angles where deniability has room to stretch. Screenshots of my rates surfaced in a group chat I wasn't supposed to see. Someone annotated them with emojis, scissors, dollar signs, and a clown. I learned to go quiet. Quiet is not surrender. Quiet is the sound of a bowstring. The day the city announced the Riverside Safety Initiative, I clipped the notice from a bulletin board by the courthouse. New funding, new equipment, expanded air rescue capacity with a medical partner flying in from out of state. The press release was bone dry, acronyms, procurement schedules, nothing glossy. It had one line most people would skip: brand harmonization across ground and air assets. I read it twice. Then I took a pushpin and stuck the paper dead center on my board, right over the sketches that had lived there for months. Flight wings, rotor arcs, a cross balanced like a promise. "Don't be ridiculous," Sophia told me, the last friend still brave enough to be honest. "They'll hire a big coastal firm. Mason's agency will pitch and lose. Your email won't get opened. Protect your heart." I nodded, but something had shifted. Too trusting had turned into methodical. I wrote a one-page brand rationale in midnight blue. No fluff. I designed 3 marks with legible rotor geometry at small sizes. I mapped how a single emblem could live on a paramedic's sleeve, a ground unit's door, a web favicon, and, yes, a helicopter fuselage cutting through winter sky. I printed the packet on the nicest stock I could afford and mailed it to a name most people didn't notice: Chief Procurement Officer, Riverside Safety Initiative. Not a mayor, not a hospital CEO. The one person who'd care about clarity at scale. Then I waited, and the laughing kept going. Mason's agency uploaded a mood board with high-gloss blades and metallic gradients. Claire reposted a drone shot of our river, writing, "Imagine a brand that lifts us." My stomach flipped, but my hands stayed steady. Weeks passed. I kept working. Another decal, another menu. Rent, on time. Heat, barely. Then, on a Thursday fogged in by river breath, an email pinged my inbox with a subject line so ordinary I almost missed it. Follow-up, branding packet. I clicked. "We'd like to discuss your proposal, Ms. Hart. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Can you join a call?" My fingers hovered over the keys. I typed yes, and stared at the corkboard where the pushpin held the future like it owed me rent. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I heard new laughter, closer, meaner, more intimate, coming from someone I never expected. Because that night, before the call, Sophia texted me a screenshot I wasn't meant to see. My entire packet, forwarded from a familiar email, annotated in red with the words, "Let's get ahead of her." The call was in 11 hours and my work was already in someone else's hands. Before I tell you how that call changed everything, you need to understand where I came from, because the kind of silence I learned wasn't born in the studio. It started long before design, long before ambition. I grew up in Kettering, 15 minutes south of Dayton, in a beige house with plastic siding and a mother who spoke in bullet points. Dad fixed vending machines. Mom taught second grade. We weren't poor, but everything we owned had a purpose. My brother Eli was the golden child. Varsity everything. Full-ride engineering scholarship. The kind of son who made a family seem symmetrical. I was the creative one. Translation, the unpredictable one. At dinner, Eli would talk torque ratios, and Mom would beam like he'd recited scripture. I'd mention color theory, and Dad would say, "That's nice, honey, but will people pay for it?" They didn't mean harm, they meant protection. But protection can bruise when it's wrapped too tightly. Every Thanksgiving, I designed something for the table. Custom place cards, name tags, even a watercolor menu one year. They smiled politely, then tossed everything in the trash after dessert. I learned early, beauty is disposable unless it earns. After college, I didn't chase the coasts. I stayed, freelancing out of loyalty and fear. Dayton wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. At least that's what I told myself. I rented small, lived smaller, and waited for my big break, which looked a lot like endurance. When my mom called, she'd always ask, "Are you getting real clients yet?" When I said yes, she'd follow with, "Steady ones?" And when I said no, she'd sigh. Long, thin, guilt-wrapped sighs that made me promise to apply for teaching jobs, just in case. Eli, meanwhile, kept rising. New apartment, new fiancé, new LinkedIn announcement every quarter. At Christmas, he'd gift Mom and Dad something engraved. I brought homemade cookies in paper boxes I designed myself. Guess which gift got photographed? Still, I loved them. I didn't hate the comparisons. I just wanted to prove I could stand on my own merit. That's what fueled me when clients underpaid or agencies stole my work. Every rejection was another line in the ledger I was building quietly against the world. Then came Sophia, a new friend, soft-spoken, sharp-eyed. We met at a local art co-op. She was between jobs and said she admired my grind. We'd stay up late swapping survival stories over boxed wine and half-finished mock-ups. I told her things I'd never tell family, how it felt to be the invisible sister, the hobby adult. She listened like it mattered. Looking back now, that was her gift. She made you believe she was listening. When Mason's agency started circling the Riverside Initiative, Sophia was the one who kept me steady. "Don't lose heart," she'd say, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Small-town girls can win big. You just have to move quietly." Irony has sharp teeth. The night before the call, I tried to sleep but couldn't. I rearranged my notes, brewed coffee at midnight, and stared at the corkboard like it could bless me. Every pin, every sketch felt alive with old memories, years of cheap jobs layered under one big chance. Somewhere in that silence, I thought about my parents, about Eli, about how no one ever expected my work to fly higher than a store window. They'd all see soon. But the world doesn't hand you justice, it hands you a mirror. And when the sun rose over the river, I looked into mine and saw not a dreamer, but a strategist sharpening her first blade. The morning call was supposed to be my breakthrough. Instead, it became the moment I realized betrayal wasn't just professional, it was personal. Someone close had already moved my pieces on the board. The morning light cut through my blinds like interrogation stripes. I brewed the strongest coffee I could manage and logged into the call 10 minutes early. Professional optimism, I called it. The Zoom window flickered, and 3 rectangles appeared. Chief Daniels, procurement head, Marla, PR consultant, and, my stomach dropped, Mason, wearing his agency hoodie like armor. He smiled the way people smile before they lie. "Good to see familiar faces," he said. "I actually recommended Lena's submission. Figured we could align her assets with our pitch." Align. That single word, so polite, so corporate, meant absorb, erase, claim. Chief Daniels leaned in. "Ms. Hart, your visuals are strong. I understand there's been some overlap in creative concepts. We just want clarity on authorship." I looked at Mason. He looked away. "I designed the packet," I said, "alone. Submitted under my name 2 weeks ago." Marla cleared her throat. "We did receive similar drafts from Hart Agency, so we just need to verify timelines." I could hear my pulse over the hum of my laptop fan. "You'll find my timestamp in the metadata," I said. Theirs came after. Silence. Then Chief Daniels nodded slowly. "We'll review and revert. Thank you, Ms. Hart." The screen went dark, but my reflection stayed. Tired eyes, clenched jaw, a woman learning that professionalism is often code for Dante make noise while they steal from you. That night, I called Sophia. "They're using my designs," I whispered. She sighed. "Maybe it's a coincidence?" "It's not. They renamed my folder." "You sent me that file, remember? I can confirm your version earlier. I'll help if you want." Her voice was warm honey, steady, believable. I didn't know she was already forwarding my drafts to Mason. The next week was a blur of polite emails and gut punches. Mason's agency posted teasers with my motifs. Same rotor curve, same cross alignment. I commented once, just a neutral, beautiful work, and within an hour, the post vanished. Power moves through deletion, not argument. When the official shortlist went live, 2 agencies remained, Mason's and a New York firm. My name wasn't there. I stared at the screen until my coffee went cold. Then something cracked. quietly, deep inside. Not rage. Focus. I spent that night tracing IP logs from my email account. Free tools, long forums, midnight tutorials. At 2 a.m. I found it. A login from Sophia's Wi-Fi 2 days before the leak. My throat tightened. I scrolled back through our messages, her encouragements, her sudden offers to proof my proposals, her weird questions about file names. It fit too perfectly. The next morning, she texted like nothing happened. "Want to grab brunch? You need a break." I stared at the message, fingers trembling. "Sure," I typed. "One last coffee." At Grounds and Grit, she wore that soft smile that could pass any lie through customs. "You look pale, babe. Everything okay?" "I didn't sleep," I said. "You're working too hard. Let Mason's team handle the big stuff. You'll get credit eventually." I stirred my drink, watched the foam collapse. "Eventually's a funny word. Did you know my file logs show your IP?" Her spoon froze midair. "Excuse me?" I leaned closer. "Don't play dumb, Sophia. You forwarded my packet." She blinked, slow, calculated. "Mason asked for reference material. I thought he just wanted to compare." "Compare?" I whispered. "You handed him everything." She sighed, eyes softening into condescension. "Lena, it's business. He can actually win those contracts. You're good, but you don't scale." There it was, the sentence that broke the last piece of trust in me. I stood up without finishing my drink. "You'll regret underestimating small scale." She smiled sadly. "Don't do anything stupid." Walking home, the winter air hit like confession water. Betrayal didn't hurt anymore. It clarified. They'd built an echo chamber around my silence, assuming I'd stay polite forever. They had no idea politeness was just the wrapper around a blade. That night, I drafted an email to Chief Daniels, attaching every timestamp, every screenshot, every overlap, proof layered like architecture. Then I stopped. Too early. Too reactive. Revenge requires timing, not tantrums. I closed the laptop, turned off the lights, and sat in the dark with the radiator ticking beside me. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about defending my work. I was thinking about owning theirs. Because if they wanted my logo so badly, maybe I'd let them have it, just not the way they expected. The next morning, I registered a quiet domain. One Mason AS team forgot to buy. The official name of the City AS Air Rescue Project. The first stone of my plan had just been set. The domain registration confirmation popped up on my screen like a secret handshake. Riverside Safety Initiative. Org. Registered successfully. One clean click, $10, and a seat at a table they didn't even know existed. That morning, Mason's agency launched their final pitch publicly. The post was everywhere. LinkedIn, Instagram, and even a tiny feature in the Dayton Business Journal. The thumbnail? My logo. My geometry. My midnight work. "Congratulations to Hart Agency for leading visual direction on the Riverside Initiative," the caption read. Not Lena Hart, of course. Just the brand. His brand. For 30 minutes, I stared at the screen, muscles locked. It wasn't just theft anymore. It was erasure in high resolution. My name, my hours, gone, replaced by a version of me that belonged to someone else. When Mom called that evening, she was glowing through the phone. "Honey, I saw your logo in the paper. Did you finally land that big client?" I hesitated. "Something like that," I said, and felt the words turn to ash in my mouth. Because if I told her the truth, if I said, "No, Mom, someone stole it and the world applauded," she'd just sigh and say, "That's why you need contracts." She'd mean well. It would still slice. Later that night, I opened my laptop again, hand trembling but deliberate. I built a mirror site using that new domain, same branding palette Mason flaunted, same hero image, but with one subtle difference. A headline that reads, D. Authenticity matters. Always credit the creator. Below it, I placed side-by-side screenshots, my dated drafts versus their finals. Metadata visible. Proof undeniable. Then I embedded a simple contact form labeled Media Verification Request. I didn't need to scream. I just needed the right person to click. 2 days later, a journalist from local Signal News did exactly that. Her subject line, Inquiry. Authorship clarification on Riverside brand. I replied with everything. Files, timestamps, DMs, invoices, even Sophia's chat history. Then I waited. The waiting lasted 12 hours. The fallout lasted forever. When the article dropped, it detonated across my feed. Local designer accuses agency of stealing city contract work. Within an hour, Mason's LinkedIn turned into a digital bonfire. Comments stacked, people tagging, demanding statements, screenshots swirling. Claire tried damage control, calling it a miscommunication. But then the journalist posted the metadata comparison. One image, impossible to refute. I watched it unfold from my studio window, snow bleeding orange under streetlights, phone buzzing like an alarm I refused to silence. Mason called 12 times. I didn't answer. He texted once. "We can fix this. Take down the site before this ruins everyone." I replied with a single sentence. "You already did." By morning, the agency's Instagram went dark. Clients unfollowed in droves. The city stated that the Riverside contract was under review pending authorship verification. Sophia posted a story with black text on a white background. Some people don't understand teamwork. I almost laughed. The next day, I received an email, not from Mason, not from PR, but from Chief Daniels himself. "Ms. Hart, after internal review, we have suspended our agreement with Hart Agency pending investigation. Would you be open to discussing a potential direct engagement?" My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I typed, "Yes, I'd be honored." That should have been a victory. But something felt off. The messages from old contacts flooded in. "Proud of you. Finally getting what you deserve. You showed them." I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt watched. Because somewhere behind those cheering faces, someone wasn't finished. That night, an unmarked envelope slid under my studio door. No return address. Inside, a USB drive and a note written in neat feminine script. "You think you won. Check the footage before you celebrate." I stared at it until my breath fogged the air. Sophia's handwriting. If betrayal has layers, I had just peeled back the next one. The video on that drive would either vindicate me or end me. I didn't open the envelope right away. It sat on the edge of my desk for hours like a live grenade. The note, Sophia's handwriting, small and deliberate, burned behind my eyes. "You think you won." By midnight, the snow outside had thickened into a hush. I locked the door, drew the blinds, and plugged the USB into my laptop. At first, just static. Then the image sharpened. A screen recording of my own Zoom call, the one with Chief Daniels. Except this time, there was a fourth participant. Hidden. A muted square in the corner, username, Observer. Then the audio distortion, and Mason's voice after I'd left the meeting. "If she pushes this, we'll bury her. Claire. Already working on it. The narrative's unstable freelancer, desperate for attention. Got a few reporters who'll take a hint. Mason. Good, she's emotional, they always crack fast. They hadn't just stolen my work. They'd prepared to destroy my credibility." I sat frozen as Sophia's voice entered the frame. Light, casual, unmistakable. "Don't worry, she trusts me. I'll keep her talking until she slips." The room spun, every conversation replayed in my head. Her comfort, her reassurances, her warnings not to overreact. I wasn't paranoid. I was targeted. I slammed the laptop shut and pressed my hands to my face. You don't cry when the knife twists. You go silent because you finally understand how deep it's been going all along. By dawn, I hadn't slept. My inbox had erupted with noise. Mason's apology statement, fake screenshots circulating on local forums, a DM from a journalist asking if I'd fabricated evidence. They were executing their counterstrike. My parents saw the chaos online. Mom called in tears. "Honey, they're saying terrible things. Just stop before it gets worse." Eli texted, "Told you the industry's dirty. Come work in tech instead." They meant to protect me, but all I heard was doubt. I packed a bag, laptop, hard drives, sketches, and drove until the city lights dissolved into cornfields. Pulled over by a rest stop, killed the engine, and let the silence wrap around me. No Wi-Fi, no calls, just breathing. It would have been easy to quit there, to vanish, delete everything, let the world decide who I was. But there's a strange alchemy that happens at your lowest. The humiliation hardens into clarity. If Mason's agency was building a smear campaign, then I'd fight it with precision. If Sophia thought she was the puppeteer, then she'd learn what it feels like to dance on strings she couldn't see. I pulled out a notebook and wrote 3 words across the top page: document, trace, expose. That became my mantra. Step 1, trace the origin of the fake screenshots. Step 2, document every communication, every timestamp, every system login. Step 3, expose the network behind the agency's cleanup crew. I wasn't crying anymore. I was strategizing. Back in Dayton, I went dark online, disabled comments, stopped responding to texts. To them, I'd disappeared. Perfect. Because ghosts see what the living overlook. At night, I built a data trail, reverse image searches, IP trackers, public file audits. Each breadcrumb led back to one corporate server labeled Heart Creative, internal, Sophia's doing, a hidden backup Mason used for client assets. She'd named the subfolder Dummy Archive. Dummy. That was me. By the 3rd night, I had enough evidence to nuke their careers. But power isn't about what you hold, it's about when you use it. So I waited. And when the city scheduled its official press event to unveil the finalized Riverside branding, I circled the date in red. That's when the breaking stopped. That's when the rebuild began. I wasn't done being their victim. The unveiling would be their undoing, and Sophia, Mason, every last one of them would watch as my cheap logo rose into the sky on something far bigger than their agency. I learned quickly that revenge doesn't thrive on spectacle. It grows in small, stubborn acts, like grafting a root until the whole tree succumbs. I started with the things they couldn't erase: logs, receipts, timestamps, paper and pixels, everything that proved I had been there first. My studio smelled like burnt coffee for a week. I slept in my chair, elbows stained with ink, eyes gritty with screen light. I built a map across 3 notebooks: networks, names, and leverage points. Each node was a person, a server, a vendor. Each line was a transaction, a forwarded email, a casual offhand message that suddenly looked like a chain of command. First, allies. The journalist who'd broken the story, Maya Rios, became my quietest champion. She sent a terse message the night after the exposé. "If you need documented proof, I'll hold the space." She didn't offer pity. She offered a process. We met in a corner booth at Grounds and Grit, both of us careful, both of us reading the room. "You've got material," she said, "but they're playing hardball. They have PR, lawyers, and a narrative machine. You need multiple corroborations, people who can testify to your process, your client notes, chain of custody for files, and you need something public that can't be scrubbed." I nodded. I already made the site. It bites, but it's not enough. Then make it permanent. She tapped her fingers on the table. Procurement will listen if they see an independent audit. The city hates misprocurement. They'll act fast if it risks federal grant money. Next, a forensics volunteer, an out-of-work IT specialist named Raj, I found in a forum at 3 a.m. He answered my desperate message with one question. "Can you prove the access?" "Yes." I sent him the USB footage, server headers, and Sophia's forwarding logs. He called back within hours. They obfuscated a lot, but not everything. I can trace the server handoffs, match MAC addresses, and, this is key, pull deleted posts from caches. They scrubbed, but caches remember. While Raj dug into their network, I did what I'd always done best: design the narrative. I built a public dossier, a clean, searchable archive on that domain with PDFs, side-by-side comparisons, and a clear timeline. No vitriol, no theatrics. Just facts in a format that journalists, procurement officers, and angry civic volunteers could use. I labeled sections plainly: submissions, agency responses, server logs, correspondence. People respect neatness. Chaos looks guilty. Sophia kept messaging like a concerned friend. Breathe. This will pass. Be careful with your words. She was trying to shepherd me back into silence. I let the messages sit. I answered only when necessary and always in neutral tones. They could misread my politeness again. Fine. They would misread me once. I also started talking to former clients, actual clients, those I designed cheap signs for and true logos for. One by one, they confirmed what I already knew. I delivered work, sometimes under budget, always on time. No one wanted publicity then. They wanted results. But when I told them how my work had been cribbed and how the city could be at risk of misbranding with stolen IP, several agreed to be references. That surprised me. People who once dismissed me as a hobby were now willing to stand on a record and say my name. The crucial piece was the helicopter rollout. Procurement schedules are public, and the city had contracted a vendor with strict branding guidelines. The helicopter was supposed to be wrapped the week after the unveiling, but publicly posted permits showed the wrap company subcontracted to a third party. A third party with ties, via invoices, to the same server that hosted Mason's backup. I traced purchase orders, payment chains, and vendor emails until the path felt like a scar. Every confirmed link tightened the noose. I forwarded the growing dossier to Maya, to Raj, and to a municipal whistleblower line, an anonymous tip that had to be logged. I printed copies and placed them in 2 safe deposit boxes, one at a bank downtown and one with a lawyer in Columbus. I'd never met, but whose firm specialized in IP and procurement disputes. I didn't tell anyone where I put them. If they tried to sabotage my site, the paper would survive. Then I baited them. Not with threats, with an offer. A week before the city's public unveiling, I sent an official-looking email from an alias ID registered, external, audita riversidecompliance.org, to Chief Daniels and the city procurement team. It was short, sterile, and cruelly bureaucratic. Subject: Routine Pre-Deployment Audit, Riverside Safety Initiative Body. In preparation for asset deployment, we require confirmation of all design chain of custody documentation for the Riverside branding. Please provide source files and vendor invoices within 72 hours for audit. I included a link to the public dossier for convenience and copied the municipal compliance hotline. It read like a routine compliance check because it was dressed as one. I was deliberately boring because boredom has more teeth than outrage. They reacted predictably. Mason S. firm forwarded a polished packet with glossy mock-ups and a notarized author acknowledgement signed by Claire. But the file metadata showed it was exported after my originals. The wrap company sent vendor invoices that referenced Heart Creative, internal. A clerk in procurement replied curtly, "We will review." On top of that, I scheduled a press drop with Maya. She promised to hold until I greenlit it. I had Raj mirror the dossier across multiple independent servers and seed copies with civic forums. If one server went dark, others would report the files. Redundancy is a quiet, boring kind of power. Friends asked why I was risking escalation. "Why go nuclear?" one of them asked in a voice that wanted reconciliation, not revolution. I thought of Sophia's spoon frozen midair. I thought of Mason's laugh in that private clip. Because they built an entire narrative machine, I said. And narratives don't die on their own. The night before the unveiling, I sat on my floor and looked at the map of names strewn across my notebooks. Each name had become a weapon, a subpoena, a testimony, a published fact. I felt the old ache of being small, but it no longer belonged to me. It belonged to the plan. I set the final piece in place, an RSVP I knew would be opened. An email to the helicopter wrap company, copied to the city and the press. Subject: Final confirmation. Riverside branding materials for air assets. Body: Please confirm receipt and author verification of the attached source files. Attached: a neutral PDF that looked like a compliance checklist. Hidden inside its metadata: a link to a live stream of the unveiling site and a script that pinged any IP that accessed the file. If anyone on Mason's team tried to quietly re-upload or alter branding files during the event, I'd see it, live. I didn't want to watch them squirm. I wanted to watch them pretend everything was fine while the mirror's ID setup reflected the truth at them. The unveiling was tomorrow. The city, the agency, Mason, Sophia, all of them would be in the same room. I had documented, traced, and exposed their network. Now I'd set the trap. Would they step into it willingly? The morning of the unveiling was cold enough to make metal sing. Riverside Square filled slowly. Officials, agency reps, journalists, interns with clipboards. Cameras gleamed under halogen tents. From the edge of the crowd, I blended in. Gray coat, knit cap, thermos of burnt coffee. I looked like any freelancer chasing coverage. On stage, banners rippled. Riverside Safety Initiative. Protecting our future. And there, on the giant LED screen, appeared my logo. The wings I had drawn at 2 a.m. The balance between the crossbars, the perfect rotation of the rotors. It was breathtaking and unbearable. Mason stood beside Chief Daniels, teeth white, smile polished. He started his speech. We believe in integrity, community, and creative excellence. Integrity. I almost laughed. Behind me, my phone buzzed. Raj's message flashed. They just accessed the checklist file. 3 IPs, agency, city PR, wrap vendor, streaming live. Perfect. A minute later, the first tremor hit the stage. Chief Daniels' assistant handed him her phone, face draining. Then the whispers started rippling through the press section. Maya's article had dropped, the second exposé. Headline in bold across every journalist's screen. Audit reveals data theft and falsified branding authorship in city contract. Every image in the piece came from my dossier, time-stamped, cross-verified, mirrored. Raj's metadata analysis was attached as a downloadable PDF. It wasn't speculation, it was evidence. Claire tried to smile through it. We can clarify, but her mic was still live. Shut it off, Mason hissed. Don't let them film. Too late. Cameras pivoted, reporters swarmed. Chief Daniels gestured for the staff to pause the event. The live stream, intended to showcase civic pride, captured every second of the chaos. I didn't cheer. I just watched as the machine began to fold in on itself. Within an hour, the city suspended the unveiling pending urgent verification. The helicopter, half wrapped in my design, sat gleaming under floodlights like an exhibit of arrogance. Small win, I thought. A crack in the armor. By sunset, my inbox overflowed. Journalists, designers, strangers thanking me for standing up. It felt hollow, but necessary. Mason's agency deleted every social post. Their website redirected to a blank page. Sophia went offline. Yet victory tasted metallic. I'd expected relief. Instead, I felt the weight of exposure. Revenge doesn't end when the truth comes out. It ends when the silence it thrived on can return. That night, as I packed my files, an alert pinged from Raj's tracker. A new login attempt from an unfamiliar IP in Columbus using my old portfolio password. Someone was still reaching. Sophia. Of course. She'd lost the agency shield, but not her hunger. And if she was digging into my credentials, she wasn't done trying to flip the story. I exhaled slowly, fingers hovering over my keyboard. Small wins weren't enough anymore. The headlines had turned, the city had paused, but Sophia was still moving pieces in the dark. The next strike wouldn't be about reputation, it would be about control. The night before I made my final move, I sat in the studio and let the quiet soak in. The radiator hissed like it was keeping score. The city was still buzzing from the unveiling fiasco, half scandal, half spectacle, and Mason's agency was bleeding credibility in real time. But Sophia, she was too quiet. Her silence wasn't retreat. It was calculation. At 2:14 a.m., I received an encrypted email from a burner address. You think the city will still love your Halo logo when they find out it's stolen too? Check tomorrow's headlines. As that was her play. If she couldn't bury me in public opinion, she'd smear me in doubt. The oldest trick in corporate sabotage. Make the accuser look tainted. But she underestimated the depth of my groundwork. I pulled open Raj's dashboard and watched the packet captures update. For the past week, he'd been monitoring her activity across the defunct agency server. Every time she logged in to move files, a copy was replicated to my encrypted archive. And now, there it was, Sophia uploading altered versions of my drafts, fake timestamps, fake metadata, all wrapped in a folder named Original Work. I smiled, not because I was winning, but because the trap was now airtight. Before dawn, I drove to Columbus, the city where the investigation was being handled. I walked into the municipal building with a hard drive, a notarized statement, and 2 affidavits from the forensic analyst and the journalist. The clerk took one look at the evidence package and waved me into a private room. 2 hours later, Chief Daniels joined us. He looked 10 years older than he had at the unveiling. We've seen enough, he said quietly. They forged submissions, tampered with public records, and attempted to defraud the city. I'm recommending a full termination of the contract and referral to state investigators. Will Sophia be included in that? I asked. He hesitated. If she's the one coordinating these uploads, yes. I nodded once. Good. By noon, the city issued an emergency statement. Effective immediately, the Riverside branding contract with Hart Agency is void. Investigation pending into data falsification and procurement interference. Within an hour, Maya had the story live. Within 3, Local Signal's homepage crashed from traffic. That evening, I walked to the river, the same river that had framed my humiliation months earlier. Above it, the helicopter, now stripped of decals, hovered for a test flight. Its sides were bare aluminum, gleaming silver in the sunset. And then, almost poetically, my phone buzzed. A new email. Subject, Partnership Proposal, Riverside Safety Initiative Body. Ms. Hart, we've reviewed your work and would like you to serve as the official creative lead for the rebranded project. Please confirm interest. I sat on a bench overlooking the water. It was everything I'd worked for. Every sleepless night, every betrayal documented, every humiliation metabolized into precision. But I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I opened Sophia's last thread again and forwarded it, to Daniels, to Maya, and to the State Cybercrimes Division. A silent handoff, a final exhale. Then I did one more thing. I uploaded the entire revenge story, the dossiers, the audits, even the metadata breakdowns, to a public archive under the headline, Cheap Work, Clean Hands. It wasn't vanity, it was a legacy. The truth had cost me too much to keep private. By the end of the week, Mason's agency was under federal review. Their investors fled. Claire deleted her accounts. Sophia's name appeared in one last headline. Local creative exec accused of data fraud in city contract. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post. I didn't even watch the comments bloom. Instead, I turned off every notification and stepped outside. The world had grown smaller and clearer. The sound of rotors filled the sky. When I looked up, I saw the helicopter again. New wrap, clean blue and white, bearing my logo just as I had drawn it. This time, nobody laughed. The city's trust had been restored. My revenge was complete. But justice has a strange aftertaste. It asks, "Who are you when the fight is over?" And I wasn't sure yet if I liked that answer. The morning after the press release, I woke to silence so complete it felt staged. No pings, no emails, no new alerts. Just the faint hum of the city outside my window. Car tires hissing on wet pavement. Somewhere a siren fading east. The world had finally stopped moving against me. I brewed coffee, sat by the window, and watched the river carry the reflection of the new helicopter, a streak of blue and white in motion. My logo glimmered on its flank, as if the machine itself breathed in rhythm with me. It should have felt like triumph. Instead, it felt like someone had turned the volume down on my life. Revenge, it turns out, doesn't end with applause. It ends with an inventory. What you've lost. What you've proven. What you've become. Mason's agency folded within weeks. The headline said ethical violations, but those were polite words for professional death. Claire vanished from social media. Her apology email arrived 3 days later, full of passive regret. I never replied. Sophia tried harder. She sent a letter, not digital, but handwritten, as if nostalgia could erase malice. I didn't mean for it to go that far. We were just trying to survive. You won. Please stop. I burned it in an ashtray. Some things don't deserve to exist twice. For a while, I couldn't design. The act itself felt poisoned. Every blank canvas whispered accusation. Are you creating or calculating? So I stopped forcing it. I took walks, fixed my own furniture, and cleaned my studio until it felt new again. Eventually, clients started calling. Not for pity, but respect. Hospitals, nonprofits, startups, real projects, clean contracts. I charged full rates. No discounts, no apologies. One afternoon, Chief Daniels dropped by the studio unannounced. He stood awkwardly among my sketches, hands clasped. "City wanted to thank you," he said. "That audit you triggered, it changed our procurement policy. You didn't just expose a fraud, you fixed a system." I smiled, small but real. Then maybe it was worth it. He nodded. "We're launching the rebrand next month. Would you consider designing the ceremony visuals?" I paused. "Only if there's no stage." He laughed. "No stage, just your work where it belongs." When he left, I stared at the corkboard above my desk, the same one that had once held sketches, proof, fragments of rage. It was empty now except for a single pin holding the new logo. Closure doesn't come from revenge. It comes from clarity. Revenge gave me the truth. Clarity gave me peace. That night, I stood by the river again. The city lights reflected off the water, broken into ripples of color. I thought about every person who had called my work cheap, every laugh that had cut me open, and how those echoes had built something stronger than validation, resolve. I whispered to the river, not out of drama, but out of habit. They laughed at my cheap job. Now my logo flies. And for the first time in years, it didn't sound like defiance. It sounded like freedom. Tomorrow would bring the official relaunch. Cameras, applause, closure. But the true ending wasn't theirs to film. It was mine to write. The relaunch day felt like a memory I'd already lived. Same city, same river, same helicopter. But this time, no humiliation humming under my skin. The new logo glowed under the floodlights. My logo. No press statement could capture what it meant to see that clean white and blue emblem glide overhead, its rotors slicing the same air that once carried my shame. Chief Daniels spoke briefly. No theatrics, no agency jargon, just acknowledgement. Design tells our story. And today, we honor the person who told it honestly. When they said my name, I didn't step onto the stage. I stayed in the crowd, hands in my pockets, watching. because the point wasn't to be seen. It was to know I existed on my own terms again. Afterward, Maya found me near the barricades. "You got your ending," she said. I smiled. "Not quite. I got my beginning." Later, in my studio, I turned on the mic and recorded the final part of this story. I'm Lena Hart, 31, a freelance designer from Dayton, Ohio. I used to think being too trusting was a weakness. Now I know it's just trust given to the wrong people that breaks you. If you've been laughed at for starting small, for working cheap, for daring to build something with your own hands, remember this. Their ridicule is proof they can imagine your finish line. Mine looked like a helicopter. Yours might look like a business, a painting, a clean goodbye. It doesn't matter what form it takes, as long as it's yours. Revenge isn't about destruction. It's about reclamation. Taking back the parts of you they tried to rewrite. So, if you're listening and you've been dismissed or betrayed, don't beg to be seen. Build something they can't ignore. That's how you win. If this story reached you, please like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Have you ever turned humiliation into strength? Would you forgive betrayal like this? Or walk away forever? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. End.